There may be levels to this, but what you need to know are the phases of Social Security disability. Now in this video, I'm going to share with you what these phases are and what these phases are not. And I'll break down each one of the phases for you. If you're ready for this, let's get it started. There are a lot of Social Security videos on YouTube and every place else online. And a lot of them talk about the levels of Social Security, but none of them deal with the phases of Social Security. Now, there are levels, yes. There are levels of appeals. There are the steps of sequential evaluation. But what no one ever talks about is the phases of disability, the three phases. And that's because I came up with it. Well, I didn't come up with it, but I put it in a way where people can understand the phases so they can see how the phases actually play out in your cases. These three phases cover any discussion on Social Security levels, and here's why. Someone can discuss the levels of disability as the levels of appeals. There's the reconsideration or recon level, there's the administrative law judge level, there's the appeals counsel level, and so on. However, every appeals level will take you through these three phases. Now, someone can also talk about sequential evaluation. If you don't know what that is, you need to watch that video and watch it after this one. I'm so serious. I put a link in the description so you can get to this because these are two words that you have to know about. But even with sequential evaluation, we see the three phases of Social Security. You can't get around these three phases to save your life. Now let's get into these three phases of Social Security disability. There are the application phase, the claims phase, and the decision phase. So let's look at each one of these one at a time. The first phase is the application phase. This is like the bread in a sandwich. It's the foundation of your case. And you cannot have a sandwich without bread. Yeah, I know people eat lettuce wraps, and I know they eat burgers with lettuce. I get that. But in a typical sandwich, there's going to be some bread, all right? So the application phase is the start of the disability process. So in this phase, you first have to find out if you're eligible. You find out whether you have enough quarters of coverage to establish a window of eligibility within which you can figure out when your disability began. The second part of the application phase is the actual application. It's actually putting in an application for SSDI benefits. And then the third part of the application phase is the follow-up. There are some other things that might need to be done before the case actually gets to the DDS, which is the office that works on disability claims for Social Security. Those three sections are really the heart of the application phase. The second phase is called the claims phase. Now, if we're talking about sandwiches, this is the meat. You can't have a sandwich without meat. Oh yes, I know you can do mushroom burgers. I get it. But in the sandwiches that I like meat. So we're going to roll with that, all right? So in sandwiches, you have the bread, but now you have to have meat inside the bread, and that's going to be the part that fills you up. The claims phase is no different. The claims phase is the meat of your case. It's the bulk of your case. There's medical records. That's the first stage. They're requesting medical records from your doctors. Sometimes they have to get follow-up records as well. Then there's also forms that you have to complete, and the examiner might have to call you to get additional information. Maybe get some clarity on some things. Maybe get some clarity on a form that you filled out. But either way, forms and phone calls are another part of the claims phase. Another part of the claims phase is what's called a consultative examination. They'll send you out to a doctor who is not a Social Security doctor, but is a doctor contracted by Social Security to perform an evaluation, a medical evaluation, when there's limited records or maybe they need something cleared up in the records. Then there's the MC review, the medical consultant review. There are doctors on staff at the DDS who are reviewing the medical records and they're making a medical determination on the case. And then another part of the claims process is the medical vocational development. This is towards the end of the case where the examiner gets the MC review, and on the strength of that review, they start looking at your past work to see if you can go back to that past work. And if you can't go back to your past work, then they start looking at if there's what other work that you can do. The last part of the claims phase is the quality review. Now, there's two types of quality reviews. There's one that's in-house with the DDS. They have people on staff to just check and see if everything was done properly on the case. And then sometimes cases are randomly sampled to go to what is called the Disability Quality Branch. This is an off-site office whose responsibility is to review cases to make sure that they were done properly. And if they see that there was an error on the case, they'll bounce the case back to the DDS to correct the mistake and to get the case done the right way. So those are all of the sections of the claims phase. The last phase is the decision phase. This is like the packaging for the sandwich. It's the foil, the plastic wrap, the bag, the paper, whatever the sandwich is being wrapped up in. This is the finishing touch. This presents the sandwich to be ready to be given to the person who's going to eat it. All right, makes sense? So in the decision phase, there are three types of decisions. There's what's called an allowance. An allowance is basically saying that you were approved for ssdi. In other words, you're getting a check. All right, that means everything's good. You're getting a check, and you'll be getting a check for some time. The second part of the decision phase is denial. That means you're not getting a check. You're not getting no money at all. They didn't find you disabled. And that opens the door for you to be able to appeal your decision. And then there's a third decision that doesn't always get talked about, but it is something that happens, quite often. And that is what's called a no determination. A no determination decision basically says that maybe there was something that was incomplete. Maybe there was a person who could not be found and the whereabouts were unknown. Maybe the examiner found out that the person started working again and started working over SGA. So since that's the case, they will send the case back to the Social Security office so that they can develop that part of it to see whether this person really is making more money than they should in order to continue their claim. So that's the decision phase. So as you can see, these three phases are going to show up in every level of Social Security disability. If you're at the ALJ level, you would have to apply to appeal and go to the ALJ, and then the ALJ with their staff would go through the process of developing and preparing things for the case and for you to appear before the judge. And then there's a decision phase after that. So it's going to be at every level, regardless of what you do. All right, and that's it for this video. So I want you to go to the next video and check out what I have in store for you next. Now, don't leave me hanging, because I'm going to meet you on the other side.